Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be covering some of the developments near Bakhmut and Kreminna. A big battle had been taking place for the Serbansky Forest south of Kreminna. That may not be the name, but I think I got it right. If I throw up the hybrid map, you can see that there's a big forest south and to the west of Kreminna. And right now it's being reported that Ukraine has been able to push the Russians out of this southern forest. There have been previous reports saying that Ukrainian forces could see the south of Kreminna, and signs are saying that Dubrova has been liberated because the Ukrainian General Staff reported shelling on the city itself today. So this is already pretty good because it eliminates the last natural barrier between Kreminna and the Ukrainian positions. It looks like there may be some sort of offensive forming going into the city of Kreminna. Considering that Ukraine has control of chervonopopivka from the north, I wouldn't be surprised if we see some kind of flanking maneuver going through and Zhitlivka down into Kreminna. I forgot to mention this in the video, but there's also been a big troop buildup in Makivka, which is a settlement right next to it, and in the Serbansky Forest to the south of Kreminna. Because if Ukraine is able to take over Pishane and Zhitlivka, the forest to the west of Kreminna will have to surrender. It looks like we're seeing a pretty favorable situation developing here, so I'm excited to see what's going on. Heading south to Bakhmut, I need to explain the fluidity of the whole situation here. In my last video, I reported that Ukraine had pushed Russia out of the eastern outskirts of the city, and in that period of time, Russia retook the eastern outskirts of the city, and then Ukraine had counterattacked them again and pushed them out. Except this time they are completely out of the eastern outskirts, and now Ukraine has full control over the area. It's likely that this won't last long, considering how last time it didn't even last 24 hours, but it is showing that Ukraine still has the initiative. Damn, I don't have anything to talk about. Since there wasn't a whole lot of stuff to talk about today, I want to go over a little bit of what Ukraine's strategy for up north is. The main city of Svatove is the big Russian holdout in this region, and you can see Svatove has a big line of settlements to the north and south of it. Russia has turned the settlements from Troitske all the way through Svatove into Kreminna into a line of defense. Russia's main strategy is to have this line as their main defense line and then have further strongholds out west. I'll map them out real quick. Kuzemivka is one of them, Kolomichiha is one of them, Tavelzhanka is one, and Kislivka used to be the other one. These strongholds all connect back to the main line. For a while, Russia has been able to hold out in these northern regions. Further south, there's no real, big stronghold city, except for Kreminna, which is already a part of the line. Kreminna is a designated defense point along the line, but these strongholds are more like stepping stones to get to the line. Kolomichiha has a pretty solid defense network inside of it with a river going through it and a lot of Russian lines of defense, so it's been very hard to breach. Kuzemivka is a good position to hold, even though it is on the low ground, it's a very defendable position. And Kislivka used to be one of Russia's big strongholds until Ukraine eventually took it out. This was a good stronghold because it has settlements all around it that can guard their flanks and they can centralize defense easier. And up north, Tavelzhanka is a good stronghold because it has a river going through it and there's a forest inside of it, and it's just genuinely a difficult type of terrain to attack. Russia likes to anchor their defense in easily defendable settlements that are away from the actual city that they're trying to protect. This happened in the Kherson front line. Hang on, let me draw this really quick. Russia's main strongholds were Pravdine, Kiselvika, Oleksandrivka, Snihurivka, Davydiv Brid, Velika Oleksandrivka, Vysokopilia, and Zolota Balka. Oh, sorry, and Berislav too. This defense network was set up to protect the city of Kherson, and this is how Ukraine eventually dismantled it. During the initial part of the Kherson counterattack in early September, Ukraine took the city of Vysokopilia by eventually flanking it, which forced the Russians to leave the area. This removed a link in the broader defense of the region and pushed the front line back considerably. And after many attempted assaults, Ukraine took over the city of Davydiv Brid and Zolota Balka almost at the same time. Russia hadn't fully developed the defense of the settlements around Davydiv Brid because it was just a really strong position to hold. And when Zolota Balka and Davydiv Brid fell, Velikia Oleksandrivka was left as the only stronghold in the region. And now that Ukraine had flanked their only stronghold by taking the other two, they had to fall back. They eventually fell back to a line around Bozorunesk, Suhankov, and Milove. That was part of the counterattack that happened back in October. And after that counterattack had happened, the Russians realized what the inevitability was with Ukraine targeting all the supply routes across the Dnipro River. They realized that they were going to have to withdraw one way or another, so It's theorized that one of the generals eventually convinced Putin to allow them to use the troops to take the rest of the Donetsk Oblast, and they got the perfect excuse to do this because Ukraine had breached the first defense line near Snihurivka, which was one of Russia's big strongholds, and after that happened, the entire front collapsed, and they were gone within the next 3 days. That's why Russia's stronghold system is really ineffective. Let me point out another example that happened in Lyman. Russia used Lyman, Drobyshchiv, and Yampil as their main strongholds in this region. And considering there's a river where the front line was drawn, they thought this was a pretty effective defense. Until after the Kharkiv counterattack, Ukraine began to cross the Oskil River in some regions, which led them to eventually leading to the flanks of Lyman. They started to push the line even further. It kept moving up until the Russians finally realized they were in a bad situation when the Ukrainians took Ridkodub. I still remember back when it was September and slowly seeing the dominoes fall into place. They took more settlements up north, they took over Nove, and then the one that really sealed their fate was Kolodyazi. Then there were reports that Ukraine managed to take Stavki, and then they did a river crossing across the Seversky Donets River and managed an effective assault towards Torske. Once they were able to hold these positions, the Russians realized that it was pointless. Even though they had really strong defense in Drobyshchiv, Lyman, and Yampil, they couldn't withstand the pressure of an assault from 3 sides or a potential encirclement, so they fled. And then they rapidly started reinforcing the Svatove Kreminna line from there, and so far it has been sort of effective at holding them. The main problem with this whole setup is that flanking one of these settlements can often lead to a collapse in the rest of them. Ukraine finally took out Kislivka, which allowed them to push up to the Kobylka River up north. And then from there, their next step is to take out Volodymyrivka, and once they do that, they can head south to Kuzymivka, and put it in an uncomfortable position being surrounded by a lot of sides. Since the Ukrainians control Novoselivske, and there'll be hills on that side and hills to the north, Kuzymivka may have to surrender with all the artillery pressure and storming from 2 sides. And then from there, if Kuzymivka falls back, Kryvyoshivka won't last, Pidkyuchansk also probably won't, and then from there, their next stronghold, Kolomichiha, is in an uncomfortable position, and then before you know it, the line is going to just fall back to Svatove. Now keep in mind, this isn't going to happen immediately, this will probably take weeks to happen. Okay, editing me here, I kind of forgot to tie this into the whole narrative of the video. So if Ukraine is able to effectively take out Kreminna by flanking it like they did with Lyman, this will basically allow Ukraine to put a ton of pressure on Krasnoruchinsky from 2 sides. And once they establish that line, it's just going to be like a domino effect. They'll push into Zaliman from the south and the west, and they'll continue to do that for all the settlements, and they will work their way up until they eventually reach Svatove. So overall, this is Ukraine's strategy for the north. They may attempt to push past the Kobylka River into Nizhnya Duvanka, but Russia's main goal right now is just to keep holding them at the Svatove line and not allow them to get potentially behind Severodonetsk or Svatove. That is sort of easy because this area is full of fields with no real good roads. There's a couple though. It's going to be a really tough situation for Russia if Kreminna, which is one of the main components of the line, falls and Ukraine is able to operate behind the Svatove line. From there, I can see the line falling back to Starobilsk, which Russia has for the first time been building fortifications in, which could be indicative of some future thing to come. Also, I just watched the speech that Zelensky gave to Congress, and that was great. I think the exchange of flags that they did was really cool and symbolic of their relations. And that's what we got. See you guys later. Thank you to my channel members Gene Helfrich, Stieg Grun, Butler-esque, David Appel, Delo Mathatas, Phil Martin, Robert Jenkins, Richard Quadri, Evan Shin, Rye Jones, Mr. Walkman, Ashley C137, Joel Raindow, Mike Q, Joe Sauer, PG, and JG Bashlow. See you guys later.